Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So super glad everyone is here joining us. Again, I know we had a lot of athletes race today, so congrats to everyone that did race. I know we had a lot of great results. But this week, we are talking a little bit of a hot topic in regards to our sport. Thank you to everyone's favorite triathlete who has kind of brought this into popularity on some of his social channels and things that Lionel's going through. So we are talking through Red S, what it is, what it isn't, and kind of how to manage it, especially in a heavy training volume, and then also really managing it in your daily life. So if you have questions in regards to this, if there's something that you maybe want to stop on and dig in more, drop it in the chat, raise your hand, let us know. We really want to make sure that you leave feeling confident in understanding what this is, how it can impact you, and then also just some of the ways that you can better manage this. So we'll give this 1 second to load. There it is. Okay. So in case you didn't know, Red S stands for Relative Energy Deficiency in Sport. And that's kind of the uniqueness of it is it's very possible for people to have relative energy deficiency. But for us, the impact comes whenever we talk specifically with it happening in sport. So again, we're just going to kind of dive in here. So what is it? So by definition, in layman's term, this is when energy intake doesn't meet the demand of training in life. And one thing I want to emphasize with this is it is not a calorie deficit. Okay, this is beyond calorie deficit. This is now we are operating beyond a calorie deficit. It's more than just low energy. We are now impacting whole body systems. And we'll kind of go through what that means here in a minute, but it's more than just being tired. It is systematic at this point. And so I think that's where there's a little bit of a line with Red S. And it's funny that we talked about, nutrition and maybe some losing weight strategies a couple months ago. But this is taking it a step further. This is, okay, maybe we've been in too much of a deficit, or maybe our training load has increased too much, and now we are off balance in regards to how our body is able to handle the demands of training and life. So what does that mean? So whenever we talk about whole body systems impacted, this is what we're talking about. So for women, menstrual and reproductive, that's usually one of the main culprits of this is, and we're just going to get into it. If girls are losing their menstrual cycles or having reproductive issues, it's a lot of times, especially within female athletes, it can be related back to something in regards to Red S. Bone health. This is another really big thing. If you are continuously getting stress fractures, if you are continuously having, issues with your bone health, again, this can be related to that. Metabolism and cardiovascular. So whenever we talk about metabolism, again, whenever we talk about calorie deficits and things like that, there's a metabolic change that takes place. And a lot of times whenever we are in a deficit for so long, that metabolic change of, you being able to lose weight or whatever, it kind of stalls. And we'll get into this a little bit more here in a second, but it's again, your metabolism now is stalling. It's not so much working with you in order to lose weight from being in a deficit. Mental health and mood. You're cranky. Maybe you just feel the effects of not feeling great. And I mean, we all have, mental health things, but again, you're going to feel maybe more effects of this. And then just recovery and immunity, especially if you are struggling to not be sick, or maybe you are someone who is constantly just like, you always feel like you're getting sick, or you always feel run down, this can be heavily related to that. And kind of like we mentioned here, it's not uncommon that you will have multiple systems affected by this. So you could totally be having issues with, your recovery and your bone health, or, any combination of these. It's not necessarily it's going to show up in one area. It's very common where you can have it in multiple areas. Mackenzie,
I'll just, did someone have a question, or is that me? I think, I'll just jump in. I think something else that's important too is, while stress fractures are a very clear, defined way to see if you have it, I think there's also the key areas of tissue that we get, so bad knees, tissue around your knees. That's another indication. It may not necessarily be a complete stress fracture, but it's areas where you can get, so in your tibia where you can get stress fractures, that those are things to look out for as well. So it may not be a full-blown stress fracture, but it could be areas, again, where you're constantly breaking down on your foot and your legs. You got knee issues and all that. And then the other thing I was going to say is, sometimes this is connecting back to the metabolism and cardio. Your heart function is also impacted and impaired with RED-S, and that could be elevated heart rate, resting heart rate, or it could be elevated heart rate when you are doing easy swims and easy bikes. If you see your heart rate is not at a normal level that it should be, that also can be an indication of RED-S. So just be constantly on the lookout for a lot of these things, but we'll go into a little bit further.
Yeah, that was really good. So just to clarify what RED-S is not. So I kind of threw this in here. It's not an eating disorder. And whenever we say eating disorder, it's not having disordered eating around anything in particular. I think a lot of times, again, it's easy to think, oh, that person just doesn't eat enough or something like that. But it's not always necessarily that. It could just be there is an imbalance between their training and what their body metabolically needs. No particular body size or weight is subject to this. It could be any body, it can be any size. And again, it is not normal training fatigue. So, we all train a lot. You know what heavy training fatigue feels like, but if you are constantly feeling like you're never getting out of that rut, then this could be an indication that maybe there's something there. And kind of like we mentioned here, training fatigue improves with rest. If you are in a RED-S state, that fatigue is going to persist. You're going to feel kind of like you're digging a hole and someone's just throwing dirt in on top of it. You're not making any progress. And so again, it's an exaggerated sense of fatigue outside of just what you would have normally. And kind of as we mentioned, again, any athlete, any size, any gender can be impacted by this. And I think that's why it's interesting, because a lot of times with female athletes, it's easier to have these conversations because you maybe have some higher indicators for female athletes, but male athletes are completely subject to this. And we can kind of dive into how that shows up a little bit more here in a moment, but anyone can definitely be affected by this. So how it impacts athletes. So obviously performance. If you are kind of getting to a point where you are plateauing, maybe you're just seeing slower times, or you're unable to hit power and pace, a lot of maybe some normal things that you would see if you were in a regular deficit or anything like that, it's definitely going to show up there as well. And then I would say recovery is probably one of the bigger areas you're going to see it. If you are having a sustained amount of soreness, again, the injuries, frequent injuries, or if you are just fighting illness and you're not able to really get over it, it could be a sign that your body just isn't feeling supported enough in regards to helping your body recover. I I think maybe there's just some feedback. Hormonal health. So again, for females, kind of like we talked about, having missed periods. And then for males, having low testosterone, having low libido, things like that, on your hormonal health can absolutely be impacted in this. And then, like we mentioned, just the psychological mood swings, decreased motivation, any sort of brain fog that you're having. Again, that's how you're going to feel more of the impact of this within your training, and then also within your life. You know, a lot of this is, yes, it's very training focused, but you will see these things show up in your life as well, and feel the effects of those.
Yeah, and for recovery, I often say to the athletes I'm working with, like, a lot of us have longer rides and runs on the weekends, and those are tiring and exhausting. However, you shouldn't be napping the rest of the day or not being able to do anything the rest of the day. That is a very big sign that you're probably not getting in enough nutrition, which is potentially allowing you to be in this red S state. So being very cognizant of those bigger training sessions and how you're feeling and recovering, because we should be able to get up and train on Sunday after a long ride Saturday, and we should be able to get up and train on Monday morning if that's what your training schedule allows. And if you're not able to do that, that's something you really want to talk to your coach about, look into, and just get an understanding of how and when you're supposed to recover properly in order to meet those training sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. In warning signs, this is kind of what we've talked about. The one thing I will mention here that we haven't mentioned is sleep disturbances. If you are having issues staying asleep specifically, or you are just someone who is maybe constantly up throughout the middle of the night, that could be another sign that your body is either just kind of in a aroused state and you're not able to get into that rest, which then again affects your recovery. So it's a little bit of a domino effect. But since we hadn't mentioned that, I wanted to add that in there. And then Mackenzie, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, just say with that, having night sweats. So if you're waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning and having night sweats, that's an indication that, again, something is not correct in your body.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so hopefully you have a very thorough understanding of what this is. So let's kind of pivot and talk about prevention and action steps in regards to this. So obviously, the number one thing that really needs to be addressed, and we really have to make sure that we're talking about, is your nutrition. And I would say, again, this is going to talk through, or this is going to apply both within training and then also outside of training. And I think a lot of times your fueling and your nutrition is more important outside of training, because that is where recovery can jumpstart. That is where you are supporting your life. But in regards to just some fueling basics, making sure that you're fueling early and often, especially around your workouts. And we'll kind of give you some general guidelines here in a minute, but carbs are critical. Making sure that you're getting carbs. If you are an endurance athlete, do not be afraid of carbs. That is how your body operates. That is its primary fuel that it loves. So making sure that you're having that protein at each meal along with snack. And one thing that we didn't add in here that I definitely want to mention is also fat. Having fat in your diet is very important. It helps your body absorb a lot of the macronutrients. It helps your body process your hormones efficiently. And so having fat in a well-balanced diet is definitely a good approach to take in regards to this, especially if you are trying to get back into a homeostasis place. And then, yeah, just making sure that you're having, calcium, vitamin D, all those things that do support your bone health. If you are able to do a blood test and kind of have a broader understanding of maybe where some deeper deficiencies are for you in your body or in your health, that can always be helpful. And then, you can kind of determine, is that something you want to supplement, or again, kind of make some diet changes in regards to making sure you're getting in what you need to. but really just making sure that you are aware of how to fuel your body. Outside of that, within training, and again, this is where having really good communication with your coach is so important. It is so important to tell your coach how you are feeling so that they can help you work in recovery days, or they can continuously help you have balance with the stress and the recovery. And one thing that I tell a lot of my athletes, and I coach a lot of parents, is your life stress is stress on your body. And so you having good communication in regards to, hey, it's a really busy week, or my kids are doing sports right now and I'm coaching it, or, whatever it is, those stress things can play a role on your body as well. And so that's where it's important to just have that open communication so that they can, again, help you balance the intensity of life, balance the craziness of training as well, as all of those things can be related. Anything you want to add there, Mackenzie?
Yeah, I think I'll just highlight too the importance of carbohydrates as athletes and endurance athletes especially. They've been doing research on this specifically, but a lot of research is indicating that, yes, we know calories are the most important thing that we can get in. However, there are effects of not having enough carbohydrates as athletes to lead to getting these deficiencies, red S, and having these injuries. And then with that, you're going to have more bone loss. You're going to have issues with performance and everything. And so carbohydrates, that's the first thing to go, I know, for a lot of people when they want to lose a few pounds or want to cut back a little bit in their diet. And that is something that we really have to be cognizant of, is finding that threshold that we still maintain good energy, good performance. And I also think as athletes, it's hard sometimes. A lot of us come from strength training backgrounds or athletic backgrounds, or you're doing this just to feel good and look good. I think there is a big difference in aesthetic and performance related nutrition goals and food goals and macronutrients. And that's also something to be really aware of. If you're training 18, 19, 20 hours plus a week, you should be fueling your body for performance and not necessarily for aesthetics. Aesthetics is a great time and place for people who aren't as intense in their training. But if you are ramping up and really in peak season, we should not be dieting. We should not be cutting carbs or anything like that, just because our body systems need an intense amount of calories in order to reload from the training sessions we've been on, and also to be able to have enough energy to do all of the mechanics that our body needs just to live and breathe. And so I think that's really important for us to really get a grasp on, is aesthetics versus performance, especially as we are in peak weeks, peak training for our races.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And a lot of the nutrition athletes that I work with is, they'll come to me and, they will have been trying to lose weight for 12 plus months, or they've been, quote, in a deficit for 2 years, or, something crazy. And you look at how much they're eating. And a lot of the times when people are not losing weight, and I know this is kind of going on a tangent, but just to reiterate the importance of calories, even with training, is it's a lot of times because you're not eating enough. And especially with heavy training, it's very easy for your body to get into almost like this mode of, I have to hold on to everything because I don't have enough in order to support what I'm needing. And so, that's where, again, it can be helpful to have someone that can give you guidance in regards to how much you need to be eating in order to balance your training. But I will say, and I know one of my athletes is on the call. She did an RMR test, kind of in the peak of her Ironman training, and I think her calories that she needed came back, and it was like 800 to 1,000 more than she thought she needed. And so, that's why it's important to know and to have an idea of what do I need in order to properly fuel my body, especially in regards to how much you are training. So this is very general fueling. Again, this is going to differ by athlete. This is going to differ by your training intensity, but just to kind of reiterate the importance of it is, before training, having some sort of carbs and electrolytes. I don't really ever recommend fueling in a fast or training in a fasted state. So having something that can kind of help support your body, especially if you are training day in and day out. And then during, again, this is a very broad range, but it depends on the duration of your session. It depends on the intensity of your session. And then after having a really well balanced snack or meal, depending on what you have time for, that includes protein and carbs. And again, I would include fat in this as well, just a little bit, to help you absorb everything. And then making sure, again, that you are having a balanced meal throughout the day, which includes protein and carbs at every meal, which can help, again, support your recovery outside of what you're doing within training. Anything you want to add there, Mackenzie? Okay. So practical takeaways. These are some questions that I would encourage you to just ask yourself. Are you fueling before, during, and after sessions? And if so, are you recovering well? I would say that recovering well, take that, your body, what is out of normal range for you. You know that if you have gone 2 or 3 weeks and you are not feeling like yourself in training, you are not feeling like yourself at work, what recovering well means for you. And then noticing any red flags. Is there anything in regards to some of the red flags that we mentioned earlier that maybe stand out to you? And if so, then having a conversation with your coach or having a conversation with if you're working with one of our nutrition coaches, and having just an open dialogue of what you are noticing and what you are feeling. And again, they can kind of then help provide guidance in regards to, okay, maybe we need to back off intensity. Maybe we need to work in recovery days, things like that, just to help you have a better balance and allow your body to kind of recover a little bit to get you back to where you need to be. Because then you're going to feel better. You're going to be performing better in training. You're going to feel better. And it's always better to maybe back off the intensity, even though I always feel like that's hard for people. It's like we want the intensity, but sometimes it's better to back off the intensity so that your body can recover better. And usually that is whenever you see gains made, especially if you've been in a plateau for a while, because your body is then operating in a little bit better of a state than it had been when it's just in this constant depleted state. So those would be some takeaways. Do you have any others, Mackenzie?
That was great. And the other thing with rest and recovery, a lot of people, if you are being conscious of your weight and the calories, they tend to eat a lot less on your rest and recovery days. And your body is literally recovering. So I always suggest we can find other ways to lose some, to save some calories. But on those days, it is extremely important to get in enough calories. And it is worth noting that 1 or 2 or a couple weeks of a caloric deficit is not going to necessarily put you into a red S state. It's going to take a lot of long-term energy deficiencies in order to get there. So again, working with a coach or having someone help with nutrition is going to be super important. But just a couple of things I wanted to highlight there.
Yeah, that's very good. And I know that we answered in here what RMR stands for is just your resting metabolic rate. You know, if you are in Austin, Harold, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you do this testing. If not, I know lots of people in lots of cities that do it. I'm sure you could even just Google RMR testing, and you could probably find it if that is something that you were interested in. But if you are in Austin, then, and I've seen the reports from Harold's testing, and they are so thorough. They are like so comprehensive. And so if that is something that you are able to do, whether it's with Harold or someone else, I'm sure other cities have amazing people that can provide reports as well. But it's very insightful, and it's very, it really can kind of tell you again, like what's going on. And I would put it in like importance with like doing a blood test, just because it really does tell you what you're not able to just see by looking in a mirror. You know, it kind of tells you what you might be missing under the surface. So Harold, Will, any other coaches or anybody else that has any questions or anything else that y'all want to add here?
I think you guys hit it right on. Like, getting a blood test, I think, is going to be the number one thing that a lot of you guys, you don't know necessarily what you don't know. And so getting that blood test, say, if you're a seasoned athlete, once a year. For myself, I do once a year right now. Maybe other athletes could do once every other year, but just something to know what necessarily you're deficient in. So that's what I'd say.
And with that too, I think a blood test is a great way to start for females. A hormone panel, and males, if your testosterone is low or your libido is low, that's also something to be very aware of. And then if you have access to getting a DEXA scan, your bone density is a big indicator of RED-S as well. So getting a DEXA scan regularly is also a great way to determine if something else is going on in your body.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome, guys. Hopefully you found this insightful. If you think of questions after the fact, because I know that this was a lot of information that we just threw at you, reach out to your coach, reach out to Mackenzie or I. We're happy to answer questions. But again, lean on your coaches. If there's something that is not normal for you, then have a conversation with them, because it could be worth either making some changes or making some small adjustments, so that you feel like your best self. Okay, we will not have a call really the next 2 weeks. Next week we have athletes that are racing Waco. So a lot of our coaches will all be in Waco to go and support them. And then the following week is Columbus Day. We're already in October. I can't believe it. So we will be back here in 2 weeks, and we'll obviously send out an email and information on that. But if y'all need anything, let us know. But have a great week, and we'll see you next time.